occupied that property years and years and years ago.
Boy, that's quite a bombshell.
I know.
I'm not sure how we're going to proceed. Oh, wow. Blast from the past. Well, very interesting.
Actually, it's my dad's brother-in-law. He married my dad's sister, and he was a dentist, and that's where I went to get dental work done.
Well, that building's been around, that's for sure.
Right.
A lot of different uses over the years. Okay, so we're ready to start recording, and we'll let Chair Logger take over.
Real quick, can we just specify who's doing the finding of fact?
Beth is going to do the finding of fact tonight. We're all set? Are we live?
Yep. Amanda, are we?
Okay.
I think most of us are all live.
Good evening and welcome to the October 10th meeting. Is it the 10th? October 8th meeting of the City of Kalamazoo Zoning Board of Appeals, a volunteer advisory board appointed by the City Commission. Tonight's meeting is being held electronically and is being streamed live on the city's Facebook page and YouTube channel. Mr. Eldridge, are there any announcements or changes to the original agenda?
I have no announcements or changes to the agenda for tonight.
We'll move on to acceptance of the September 10th minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none. Will someone make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second, I second it.
All in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now explain our procedure for tonight's public hearing. For each request, the secretary will read the application into the public record. The applicant or representative will have 10 minutes to provide their comments. Following that, public comments received via phone will be aired for the panelists and audience. And for anyone listening that wants to make a public comment, the number is up in the left-hand corner of the screen. You may call 269-226-6573. That's 269-226-6573 and leave your comment. You'll be prompted to leave it on voicemail. After this, we will close the public hearing on the request. Once the public hearing is closed, the board will then conduct what is called a finding of fact, where the board states what they feel are the facts of the request. The board must approve the finding of fact. Therefore, the first vote you hear is not a ruling on the request, but on the finding of fact. Then the board will discuss the request in order to determine a ruling. The board reserves the privilege to ask questions of persons who have already spoken, even though the public comment portion is now closed. Once discussion has ended, the board will move on to a roll call vote. A full board consists of 6 members, with 4 votes required to grant a non-use or a use variance. Ms. Doan, will you read the first application into the record?
Certainly, one moment, please. An application for a variance for provisions of the zoning ordinance has been filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals by Rebecca McLeary, owner of 833 West South Street, which is situated in Zone CC Commercial Community District. The applicant is requesting a dimensional variance from Chapter 50-7.2A to authorize a variance of 3 off-street parking spaces, which would result in 1 off-street parking space for the proposed art studio, where 4 off-street parking spaces are required. Please note that this request will not change the zoning classification of the property. This is a request only for variance regarding the items above.
Thank you. Ms. McClary, this is your opportunity to present any facts or context that you wish to present. Oh, wait, did we just lose the applicant? Let's wait a second and so she can jump back on.
I will see if I can screen share and show the site plan that's been submitted to shed a little more light on the layout while we're waiting for the applicant to pop back in.
Okay.
It should be noted for the record that Mr. Carroll is sitting in the living room of the Brady Bunch home.
Duly noted.
You guys catch Roseanne's living room last month?
Is that what you had? Great.
Chris said it was that 70s show, so he was showing his age.
Yeah, I caught that black vintage granny square Afghan over the back of the couch. It brought back some memories.
Yeah, me too. My grandmother had one. I use Lucy's I Love Lucy kitchen when I'm at work. People like that.
Okay.
Good one.
Okay, I'm going to go to the screen share right now. Before I do, has she been able to? No, okay, we'll give her a few more minutes here. There we go. Okay. No, it's not. Let me check one other thing here.
I see your popping
Okay.
back in.
Well, I'm not sure why show all windows. Okay, let me drop out of that. Okay, Rebecca's back. I will keep working on trying to screen share that. I'm trying to pull it off the website.
Okay. So, Ms. McClary, I think I saw you drop off just as I was handing it off to you for you to offer your comments.
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry, my internet, as soon as you handed it to Beth, so I'm not sure what's happened since then, but I'm assuming that now is the time for my comments.
Yes, it is.
So I'll just go ahead. So overall, I think you heard in my written application, there are multiple aspects. It's a 1,600 square foot building, but I have a small retail portion, an art studio for the public to come in and use, a small coffee kitchen, and then of course the garden. So the goal, should this be approved, is that the garden, the back area at the back of the driveway, the back of the building, is partial garden and partially paved. So the goal is to have the whole back area fenced with a privacy fence, and that is scheduled to happen in December, to be installed in December, pending approval of this variance request. So if the back area can then be fenced, I'll have art tables, and art areas for larger or messy projects like dyeing fabrics or painting on large canvases. Also, canopies, fairy lights, commercial patio heaters. So it's a nice area for people to gather together to do art or just drink a cup of coffee together also. The kitchen is actually at the rear of the building. So in my next phase, which is not included in my current site plan, but the goal of the next phase would actually be to add a service window from the kitchen, between the kitchen and the garden, so that people could actually enter the back area and go directly to that service window to, say, order a cup of coffee and be able to really enjoy that outdoor area, whether or not the studio portion is open and the retail portion. So that's the overall goal. The garden, I'm hoping that it just becomes a beautiful urban retreat space for creative endeavors. But also the garden, many of the plants that I put in, many are native. They're not completely, but many of them are native, and they're pollinator plants. And so my goal is, or my hope is, that we'll be producing things. I mean, it is already producing a lot of plants that can be used in creative endeavors as well. So, for instance, there are plants that are beautiful native plants that can be used to create natural dyes and things like that. So it's a very kind of a circular, and then, the compost from the kitchen can be used, in the garden as well. So I tried to really create a, circular business using, even though it's a very small lot and a small building, I want to be able to use all aspects of it to kind of working together, if that makes sense.
And I am putting it up on the screen, so everybody should be able to see the layout of your property right now. Is it visible?
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Ms. McCleary or Pete, the way it looks to me from this, there's a 1-lane driveway to the left, or to the, I guess, east of the building, and that drive would have one parking space, and then all the other parking would be street parking.
Yes. So it's actually the driveway is difficult because it's 22 feet wide, but 17 feet is on my property and 5 feet of it is at the neighbor's property. So we can't actually use the entire 22 feet as a lane. So, because there's not an easement on my property. So we can only consider the 17 feet that actually falls on my side of the property line. And so it is a shared driveway. So my neighbors, at the back of the driveway, it opens up either into their parking lot for the residents who live next door, or into my garden area.
Okay. And so from what I understood from your application, if without the variance, you'd really probably have to take out the part of your business that is this garden and use it as parking instead. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It would have to, there's no way, it wouldn't be safe to use the paved areas that are currently there. We couldn't use the garden and try to fit in other paved spots. It would have to all be paved. It wouldn't be safe to be back there if that was parking. So, and there's not enough space for it to be parking either, without paving a large portion of the garden. So that part of the project, and I couldn't fence it, with privacy fencing. So that entire part of the project would be non-existent.
Are there other questions from Ms. McCleary? No? All right. Thanks. Pete, could we turn to you and ask you at this point for city comments on this? I know we had received additional letters of support today, but also that you had indicated this is going through site plan, and that there are some proposed changes to the zoning code. that are relevant for this.
Yes, yes. And this project, Ms. McCleary's project started well before we even had the downtown map and text amendments on the agenda for the Planning Commission. And we weren't sure if it was going to be multiple Planning Commission meetings before we made revisions to the code, and then it went forward to the City Commission. Well, it's already been recommended by the Planning Commission, and it's on its way to the City Commission at this point. And one of the significant text amendments is deals with, well, first it's a map amendment. So there's a number of areas being rezoned, obviously, to our downtown zone districts, D1, D2, and D3. In addition to that, some of the outlying areas of the downtown are commercially zoned, and those are being rezoned to live work 1 and some live work 2. So this particular property, 833 West South Street, is going from CC commercial community to live work 1. And then as we started looking back through the text amendments, knowing that this property was being rezoned, we came across some of these exemptions for off-street parking. And so this particular use, being an art studio, actually qualifies under the definition of a craftsman industrial use, because there are crafts being purchased. Produced on site. There are arts products being sold. Anyways, it falls under that new definition in the ordinance of a craftsman industrial use. And then under the parking section, it states that for small commercial establishments, including non-manufacturing elements of craftsman industrial, which is what this is, containing up to 2,000 square feet of floor area, which this building is under 2,000 square feet, located in a building constructed on or before October 18th, 2005. Well, as Attorney Robinson attested to, this building's been around a few years and not located in a commercial community zone district is the last requirement. And if you hit all these requirements, then it says shall be exempt from all required off-street parking. So what that means is when this ordinance gets approved, assuming there aren't any tweaks to the text, this particular site would no longer need a variance to have limited parking, like what Ms. McCleary is proposing.
Okay.
But we
That
don't
makes
know.
sense.
Yeah. So that's what's coming. What's coming down the pipeline for changes in the downtown and around the downtown that actually impact the request before the board tonight. So, but we are, like I said, we're not sure when this will actually work its way through the City Commission. It may be a rather rapid process where it's done in November, or it may take longer than that. So I really just wanted to advise the board of what's coming around the corner.
If you don't mind, Pete,
Yeah.
I'd like to speak to that as well. That material for City Commission consideration, it was submitted today for introduction at their next meeting in October, which I think is the 19th. And that will, both the text amendments and the rezoning map both went through the two separate ordinances. The rezoning map is conditioned on the text amendments being approved by by the last meeting in November. And so hopefully these will go hand in glove and they'll both be approved on the first meeting in November. But again, there's no guarantee of that. Given that, while I think it's if I was to bet, I would probably say that I can see that the city commission would likely approve it. And if there's any concerns, it's not going to be in regard to properties such as you're considering this evening. It's going to be more about probably the marijuana use and the height of buildings in the core downtown. Those seem to generate the most comments. But that said, that type of thing might delay adoption of those ordinances. When you get to the point of considering the variance here, you may wish to consider putting a condition on it. So as Mr. Eldridge indicated, if those zoning changes go through, there would be no need for the variance. So you could condition the variance if you choose to grant one here this evening on the fact that if and when these changes proposed for the rezoning go into effect, this variance would basically fall off. There would be no need for it. And so it would only be good until such time as those proposed zoning changes are made. And as I said, the way I've crafted it is that the commission really needs to take action no later than the second meeting in November. Otherwise, we're going to have to reboot.
So Mr. Robinson, assuming we grant the variance today without that condition, it essentially becomes moot if the ordinance changes. So how does the variance, does it continue to run with the land if we don't put that condition on?
Yeah, that's what I'm a little unsure of. I mean, it would appear probably in the chain of title. And I guess I don't want to create problems for the applicant when it comes around for her to sell the property, because my guess is there might be something needed from the city to indicate that the variance is no longer applicable. That's what I was just trying to avoid some problems in the future. But yeah, if you don't want to make that condition, we can probably deal with it anyway. It's just something I want to consider food for thought.
Yep, and I can also make sure we've got a paper trail on that. So when that does occur, I can send out a second notice to the applicant / property owner as far as what these ordinance changes now approved by the city commission, result in for her property. And then she would have that for her records and we'd have it on file at the city.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any additional questions for Pete or Mr. Robinson? Or any additional comments, Mr. Eldridge?
The only other comment, and I think everybody read them, but yes, as was mentioned, we received letters and emails in support of the variance. Those have been gradually coming in. So, and I think when the finding of fact is read, those can be acknowledged into the record. Thank you.
At this time, are there any comments that have been left, public comments?
We have no public comments at this time.
All right. I think we can close the public hearing now, and I'd ask for Ms. Vanden Hamburg to read the finding or make a motion for the finding of fact.
Okay. I make a motion for the finding of fact at 833 West South Street.
Second.
Okay. All right. I move that the finding of fact for location 833 West South Street shall include all information included in the notice of public hearing dated October 8th, 2020. 93 notices of public hearing were sent, 5 letters in support were received, in addition to 2 emails in support. A public hearing was held before the board and public comments were accepted. Rebecca McCleary, owner of 833 West South Street, which is situated in Zone CC Commercial Community District, is requesting a dimensional variance from Chapter 57.2A to authorize a variance of 3 off-street parking spaces, which would result in 1 off-street parking space for the proposed art studio when 4 off-street parking spaces are required. Discussion. Ms. McCleary noted that the urban kitchen, cafe, art space, garden is 1,600 square feet. The goal is to have the back area a garden with a privacy fence in the back that is slated, should this variance be granted, to be installed in December. It's looking to be a nice area, gathering area for people to do art, have coffee. There will be a retail space. She's also looking to add a service window from the kitchen to the outdoor area. Urban retreat space for garden. They're looking to have the garden produce native plants, which can be used to create natural dyes, and have a compost area for kitchen waste. Chair Lager asked about the 1-lane driveway. There's some discussion about it being 22 foot wide, but in reality, it's 17, because on Ms. McCleary's portion of the driveway, it is a shared driveway. There is no easement. There's some safety concerns with that issue. Mr. Eldred's noted that Ms. McCleary's project has been in the works before changes in the updated downtown zoning. The commercial community area that it's zoned currently is moving to a D1, D2, D3 changes, switching into a live work 1, craftsman. Ms. McCleary's property meets all of the requirements, and once this goes into effect, then it would be, the property would be exempt from providing off-street parking. This is looking to happen sometime in November. Mr. Robinson suggested that today we might want to put a condition on the variance, making it null and void should it be approved in November, because it just could simplify things, streamline things, should the property be zoned or be sold at a later date. There were no additional comments or questions. There's been no voicemails or anything today from the public, other than the 5 letters of support and 2 emails. In closing, Ms. McCleary is asking that a dimensional variance be granted to eliminate the requirement of having the additional on-site parking on her property.
Thank you. And we already have a second on this. Are there any additions or clarifications anyone would like to make before we vote?
Well, yeah, Beth did a great job with that. Industrial craftsman was the terminology of the how this art studio would be classified under the new ordinance amendments coming into play.
Thank you. With that clarification, all in favor of approval of the finding of fact signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, same sign. All right, the finding of fact is passed. Now I'd like someone to make, please, a motion for approval of the variance, and if you'd like to add the condition And let me try to state the condition that Mr. Robinson had suggested, which is, should the upcoming ordinance be approved, that this variance would drop off, because as a matter of right, the property would be exempt from the parking requirement.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, with the condition.
Yes, with the condition.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, thank you. Discussion.
To me, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, one of the hats that I wore when I was with the city of Kalamazoo, the development of the city of Kalamazoo or region-wide non-motorized transportation plan. One component of that is walkable communities. You know, get away from the automobile, and this, in fact, does support that. I mean, it's in an urban area, right in the heart of the downtown, really, near the campus areas where you do have that type of activity, interest, and I think it's wholeheartedly, I support that from that aspect.
I agree with that. I'm also going to be in favor, or vote in favor of approval of this variance. I think that this use is consistent with the character of South Street itself, which is a mix of grand historic residences and small businesses that fit the community character on South Street. I think this will fit in well. I think that there is plentiful street parking on South Street. And in light of the ordinance really moving in the direction to acknowledge this as live, work, one, I will be voting in favor. Additional comments? Discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, Mr. Eldridge?
Yes. And again, this motion is to approve. The condition placed on it is, should the upcoming ordinances be approved, this variance shall drop off as the property would then be parking exempt by right. And we'll start with Ms. Doan,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Lager,
Yes.
Skalski,
Yes.
Flaw,
Yes.
Vanden Hamburg.
Yes.
The variance is approved.
Thank you so much, everyone.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I don't have my agenda in front of me, Pete. That's the only case we have tonight. Were there any other items of business?
That is it for tonight. We do not have anything else to discuss. As I mentioned, now some of the board members weren't on, but Mr. Skalski has indicated that he is planning to roll off the Zoning Board of Appeals end of this year to pursue other volunteer interests.
Oh.
Let's put it that way.
That's good. That's good.
But we'll still see him around the community. That's for sure.
Oh, I'm sure, no doubt.
Yeah. So anyway, so staff is working on a campaign to get some more applications in. And when we do have applications and we're ready to do some interviews, I will reach out to the board chair and the vice chair and the secretary, and we'll set up an interview team to handle those. So that is really it. Our next meeting will be November 12th. Yeah, so we're rolling through this year. So that is all I have for tonight. Thank you.
All right.
Well, with that, we're adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Good evening.
Good night.
Good night.